If you want to read a scary story tonight, your biggest single obstacle is the sheer volume of options. We live in an era of absolute abundance for horror fiction. You can pull thousands of public domain classics for free from the Gutenberg Project, or read hyper-localized folklore curated on Reddit forums. But having thousands of uncurated choices creates immediate decision fatigue. There is a distinct frustration in committing to a dense 19th century novel when all your brain actually wanted was a quick, visceral thrill. Finding a satisfying scare does not require locating the objectively scariest story in existence. It requires knowing exactly what type of experience you are trying to buy with your time. Reading horror is a transaction. You trade your cognitive bandwidth for a specific type of dread. This flowchart breaks down the transaction. Starting at the desire to be scared, your first filter is your schedule, 5 minutes or a full evening. From this, your actual goal emerges: a quick thrill, deep atmosphere, or studying the craft. To figure out which path works best, we must evaluate 3 primary categories of horror fiction and map the specific investment they demand. Accurately diagnosing your own attention span is the only reliable metric for choosing the right subgenre. This quadrant chart maps our options. The vertical axis tracks the cognitive load, how hard you have to think, and the horizontal axis tracks the scale of the threat, moving from a local ghost to an existential crisis. Our first category is classic Gothic and ghost stories. Engaging with these texts means navigating archaic 19th century prose and enduring very slow, methodical pacing. Authors like Edgar Allan Poe built the American Gothic template on a high barrier to entry. The payoff for working through that dense language is a masterclass in psychological restraint. In horror, restraint means frightening the reader by keeping the worst details completely off the page. The imagination has to step in to finish the monster. Writers of this classical era, like Bram Stoker, understood that the strongest dread is built gradually. This subgenre demands immense patience because it offers zero immediate shock value. The wrongness invades one normal detail at a time. Plotting classic Gothic places it firmly in the high cognitive load section with a relatively local scale of threat. It requires a high-cost, slow-yield cognitive investment. The dividend is structural, creeping dread, rather than a cheap jump. Our second category shifts the scale significantly: cosmic and weird fiction. Pioneered by figures like H.P. Lovecraft, this genre demands heavy cognitive engagement to track vast, complex world-building. The core engine driving these stories is cosmicism. Cosmicism operates on a very specific philosophy. Human existence is entirely insignificant within a vast, indifferent universe. Looking at this cover of Weird Tales, you can see the pulp fiction origins where these massive, hostile science fiction and horror concepts were first serialized. Reading this genre today requires a secondary cognitive load. You often have to contextualize highly problematic historical authors and their documented bigotry. The narrative trade-off is clear. You gain unparalleled atmospheric depth and an expanding mythos, but you frequently sacrifice human character development and neat resolutions. On our chart, cosmic horror lands in the top right quadrant. Both the cognitive load and the scale of threat are at their absolute highest. It abandons relatable human fears in favor of a lingering, philosophical existential dread. The final category brings the threat right to your backyard: modern folklore and urban legends. These stories rely on a hyper-local, immediate threat. You aren't dealing with ancient gods, you're dealing with the woods behind your house. The input requirement here is minimal. There is almost zero literary analysis needed, making them highly accessible for bite-sized consumption. This Roswell newspaper clipping shows exactly how modern legends operate. They root themselves in real-world geography and historical touchstones to feel plausible. This image of the collapsed Silver Bridge in West Virginia illustrates how grounded, real-world tragedies are actively incorporated in local myth. These stories take actual local anxiety and morph it into an immediate, visceral adrenaline spike, leveraging relatable fears like isolation or strangers on the road. The structural trade-off is steep. This genre is highly efficient for quick entertainment, but it relies heavily on shock value and established tropes, rather than crafting lingering psychological tension. Plotting urban legends places them squarely in the bottom left. The cognitive load is low, and the scale of threat is intimate. They fail as dense literary masterpieces, but they perfectly execute high-efficiency, localized entertainment for a time-poor reader. This comparison matrix pulls all the variables together, mapping our 3 distinct audience profiles against the available horror categories. If you fit the profile of the casual thrill seeker, avoid the dense prose of the Gutenberg classics entirely. Default to regional urban legends. This choice maximizes your visceral output when your available reading time is strictly limited. If your profile aligns with the atmosphere seeker, you need to invest your reading hours in cosmic horror. Assuming you possess the mental energy and a free evening, the dense prose will deliver the heavy world-building you want. Finally, if you are a craft optimizer, someone looking to study the mechanics of writing, you should turn to the Gothic classics. Authors like Ambrose Bierce demonstrate the exact mechanics of structural suspense. Analyzing their work teaches you why a strategically placed document or an unreliable narrator is more effective than putting a monster directly on the page. This links the craft optimizer directly to the slow burn structure of the Gothic era. The idea of an objectively superior horror story is a myth. A satisfying scare requires matching your reading choice directly to your current cognitive budget.